my grandmother, for instance. And that is like all the grandmothers of my friends that I know. You in Africa, you can easily turn 90. You don't have all those conditions of a 90-year-old in a first world. When you're ready.
All right, welcome to another episode of Diaspora. I have a very special guest today, Joy. She's from Kenya. So Joy is currently visiting from Kenya. I've known Joy about almost 3 years. Hopefully.
Is it already 3 years?
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, it's actually more.
Yeah.
If maybe. I met you in 2019.
2019, right?
But it was towards the end of 2019.
Yeah.
So probably 2021, 22. Oh my God, you're actually almost 3 years.
We counted.
Good to meet you. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, nice to meet you again.
You're now family, you know. I think once it's 3 years, you're now family, right? Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm excited to talk to you today though, because you're an interesting person that have, different point of view about the world, because you do travel between Africa and America, so you never kind of stay too long in both places. So that way, I think, except for like your home country, which is Kenya. But so my first question is, why? What do you think America need to have for you to stay here for time?
Oh, that's where you're gonna start this from.
Yeah, that's where we start.
What do I think America needs to have for me to stay? Oh wow. Do you want the shorter version or the longer version?
We're here for a long time.
A balance. That would be like a very good answer for me. A balance, because there are very many things that I like about here. But I find that at the same time, there are things I would want to take from home and bring here, or take here and bring a bit of home. But here is, sometimes it's just where my heart is. And if there was some balance on some things, probably.
So what do you mean balance? What do you mean by that?
Balance in a lot of things. Just like generally the quality of life. When I come here, I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm really happy to come. If I wasn't, I would not like go through the process of pursuing a visa, coming here and all that. I love America. I love coming here.
Right.
Staying is a whole different story. Like, I feel like I love coming in shortly, enjoying meeting people like you, family. I have family here, a lot of them in different states. I like that. But after a short time, I'm like, my heart really wants to go back home. And how they say, home is where the heart is.
That's true. So what do you mean when you mean some stuff that you want to bring from home here? What do you mean by that? What like the example of that?
It would be, so here's what you do. Like, when you travel, like international travels give you a different perspective of looking at things, right?
Right.
And that will be socio-economic, political things that when you come for the first time, for instance, the first time I ever came to America was in 2018.
Okay.
I came with my sister, my family. It was just like a summer visit to visit my brother, and then we did a whole road trip. The first time, the joys of landing in America and the contrast between here and home. So the first differences when you get in, like if you're from Kenya is a developing world according to the rankings of the world. So the first thing that you tend to notice as soon as like you enter first world status country like America would be the infrastructure. Everything is like great, grand, mighty, everything. Like, you look at your environment like, oh God, yeah, everything they have is just big and grand. I'm like, oh wow, I thought I've seen tall buildings. I thought I've seen, like everything that you think back home that you are working towards developing into is like you've been transported into the future. Sort of like for lack of a, especially infrastructure wise. You just feel like I'm in the future.
Like things that work.
Things that you see, just even like it might look so simple or basic to people who are here, but the minute you land here as a first timer in a first world, assuming maybe, because I've not been to a lot of European, I've used Europe to like travel, but not like visit Europe the way I have explored America. So as soon as you land here, even just the energy that hits you, you just tell, oh, I'm in a different world. It's just the speed, just even ordering food. I'm telling you, walking into McDonald's, and these things look simple, but it's like you've just been uprooted from a totally different dimension of life and fast forwarded into like America's like how many years after independence? 200 and something.
Yeah.
Over 200.
Right.
Kenya is just celebrating its 55th
Right.
after independence. That's like how many 100 years after independence, way ahead of Kenya. Actually, more than 150 years, right?
Right, for sure.
So you can imagine how much development we're talking about. It could be human development, speed. Everything just happens differently. We can unpack that, but it's really a lot.
So before we even unpack that, is there like the drive-through McDonald's in Kenya?
The McDonald's itself or equivalents of?
Does the McDonald's in Kenya
No, no. We don't have a McDonald's in Kenya, first of all. There's a Subway. There is... Subway has...
So do they have a fast food that you can drive to?
Oh, yeah. They have. We have. It's called Galitos. My favorite is called Galitos. I don't do a lot of drive-through fast food because it's home. You eat organic food from your grandmother's farm.
Right. So when you talk about balance, so it's good that you talk about like the things that, developed countries have that is good, like the system, the structure, everything that's good.
Yeah.
But the first line you talk about was balance. I think you haven't really explained what you mean by that.
Oh, yeah. So if I was to unpack that, maybe let's go like a step by step, sort of. Let's start with, and these are just generally my opinions and things that I observe. I might not be 100% correct in them. So disclaimer.
Disclaimer
a lot. I am not an expert. English is not my first language. So sometimes I might describe something not using the exact word. So again,
is your first language Swahili?
Swahili is actually my second.
Okay. What's the first language then?
It's Kikuyu.
Kikuyu.
I'm a Kikuyu.
All right.
Yeah. Do you know any Kikuyu, by the way?
Yeah, I think Richard is Kikuyu as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, Richard. Oh, our friend Richard. Yeah, he's a mixture, actually. He's a mixture of two languages.
All right, so...
let's start with my most pressing issue when I say balance is when I notice like economically, there are things that a country like Kenya and many other African countries could borrow a lot from America, right? In terms of the economic part of development of just how things are and how economically developed people are, leave alone. For instance, here's a quick example. If you're in Kenya, and when I say Kenya, it could be maybe even in Nigeria, you might share in this example. If you're like driving down a very premium estate, like down the beach, a huge beach, and there's like an expensive house somewhere on top of the hill, most likely who owns that piece of property or that hotel? The premium
politician?
Could be a politician, a first family. Like it goes without saying. See, you just picked it. Which tells you that the normal or the individual citizen in the country or in a country, in an average African country, you can already tell that the people are not like that much economically developed. The space is not equal for people. That's why you can pinpoint who. While as soon as you land in America, if you are driving down a beach, any other beach or the most top high-end VIP beach, it's not given who owns the most expensive piece of property, for instance. That tells you a lot. Like economic, even then here, you could be anything, Right. Those are some of the things I've really liked. And I wish we could like borrow where we get to that space where you can be anything. And that humbles you. When you get here, it humbles you. Like back home, only maybe a politician's son could own, or a politician's child or family could own ABCD. But here, you could just be selling your own bed sheets. But if you work hard enough, you own whatever it is that you want to own. So in that sense, things work here. So, and that is like economically, social part of it. Where I have a problem with the balance and where I feel like I could get a lot of things from back home and bring here, and where I think balance lacks is what I would call the quality of life. And what I mean by that is I've now come to America how many times? It is that my fourth? I think it's my fourth.
Right.
Since like I first started, when you first come, you don't notice some things.
Right.
The more you keep coming, the more, even the first excitement, you kind of now hold back and go like, oh, wait a minute, you start to learn some things of just
Right.
how things happen, how things work. And the one thing that has been constant is the quality of life of the people of first world, or America falls in the first world. In that people can, sometimes you go back and I'm like, fine, if you are that economically developed, you are the definition of human freedom, because there can't be any other, like this is America. You can be whatever you are allowed to say. You have so much space to be whatever it is that you want to be politically. Like you have so much space to be you, right? But even after all that, the quality of life of just the human touch, that human connectivity, whatever it is that I think defines human happiness, that one true love that human beings should share, that one connectivity, I feel like that is more important to define a society than just economic success and infrastructure and technology. All those things might be there, but if eventually they don't make people of a society happy and advance their quality of life, like how happy are you, how human touch that you share amongst yourselves, if they don't end up leading there, then I hold back and I'm like, then what are we doing? Why? Sometimes when they say the end justifies the means, then when I go back, I'm like, okay, what can we do different? Fine, we want to develop. Every third world, every developing country, maybe eventually you want to head to the first world. Are we able to like sieve out and go like, that is the first world, but we don't want to have the same statistics of mental health, the quality of mental health of their young people. One thing that I notice, even on my way here, something that I notice is even just the street energy, the street vibe energy in Africa, especially of young people. I don't see it here.
Right.
Some of those things, they're just not here. People are so busy. Zeke, you guys are so busy.
Yeah, people work a lot.
People work a lot here. And maybe that's the cost of developing or living in a first world. There has to be a cost to it, right?
Right.
I would assume it goes without saying.
Yeah, I think it's the cost. I think America, and I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I mean, because I went to visit my brother in London. I mean, it's also a busy country as well.
I know.
But it's a socialist country, and they have more services and they have more programs that help people. That I remember seeing a lot of men at home. And my brother was telling me that men in London that have more kids, maybe 2 or 3 kids, will make more money if the wife works and the men stay at home. As a male, you get more money. So it's a socialist country, where America is not a socialist country. It's a capitalist.
It's a capitalist.
Yeah, so capitalist. I think from what you're explaining, I think it's kind of comes down to the cost of being a capitalist country, because America, it's about profit and hard work and
I get that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that people should not work.
No, I get what
I'm just saying that there should be like a balance where after all this development, I feel like sometimes people get so busy and so caught up into the rat race of the first world, that's what I call it, that you even forget to enjoy the things that you've created. You guys have the most beautiful parks, the most beautiful roads. People
we pay for it with tax money.
I get that. What I'm saying is, which is why I said the quality of life. People are so busy to even enjoy those parks. Do you get where I'm going?
That's what we're saying. So because we're so busy trying to make money.
Yeah. So, and eventually that pace, that the go of the first world of America, that go where everyone is always in the go to go do something, the cost of the first world, you lose the human touch. It kind of just fades away.
So you're saying like you don't get the
balance.
Vibe. Yeah, you don't get like the street people. You don't get the street
just the
busyness,
energy, just
people,
the energy where I wish there could be that balance where we have worked hard, we have all these things. Couldn't like calm down just so that you just don't exist. I don't believe in being so busy or being caught up in this capitalistic endeavor. You're so caught up that all now you do is just exist to pay bills. Like if you evaluate, like if you wake up, between waking up and when you go to bed, it's all about bills. I'm paying for this, I'm paying for that. You literally don't even have time to just be a human being, to just chill, to be.
That's where
you exist. You end up existing and not living. I don't want to exist. I want to live, But when all is said and done, I don't want to exist. I want to live.
So whenever you leave America and you go back to Kenya, once you land at the airport, or once you get home, what's the first thing that you miss about here?
Oh my God! I'll tell you the first thing that comes to mind, and that will be my last time experience, right? Soon as I go to the airport, so I think I landed at JKIA at midnight. It was the last flight at midnight. Of course, I got an Uber. I didn't want to disturb her, not pick me up. Got my Uber. And as soon as I'm out of the airport, now I'm on the highway to the city to go home. There are things that you take for granted when you're in America, because I feel like they've sorted so many things that you don't even think about them, because now they sort things like you don't get blackouts here. And that's one of those things that I had forgotten, Zeke. So I'm in the Uber and I'm chatting with, I've never forgotten my Uber driver's name. His name was Francis. And I go like, hi, Francis. So I'm seated at back left. And I go like, Francis, did you forget to like put on your lights, like your headlights of the car? And he panics because it's a busy highway from the airport. He's like, oh my God. He pulls over. And he gets out of the car to go check. And he comes back. He goes like, oh, Joy, the lights are on. I'm like, are you sure? The road was so dark. It seemed to be like...
That's funny.
It seemed like it was a bit too... And then he said, well, the lights on the highway are like solar lights. And I went back when it was like the rainy season, which means the solar lights are not all lit.
Right.
And I was not used to that. And then the blackout is one of those things that happened to me the first week after getting to Kenya from America, having stayed there for like a year and a half during the COVID. So I had kind of forgotten some things like blackout, lack of running water in a busy city. Where I go like,
is that the longest you were here?
Yeah. The other times I have been like just short visits, but that was like the longest. And it takes a year to like become a different human being. You know that?
A year?
A year, that's why psychologists, if you like went through a very traumatizing moment of your life, like losing a spouse or something, if you go for like therapy or something, they always recommend don't make any decision until a year. Because after a year, that's why after a year you can even, I had forgotten, like when I went back home trying to drive, sometimes I had to remind myself that we keep left, like you'd have to do this to remember that you keep left, because after driving on the right side for a year, your brain kind of adjusts completely to the other system. Yeah. So there were things like those. Also, when you stay here longer, the confidence, you don't go back as this Franken version of, you probably know that, but there's a difference between being a Kenyan, trying to express something that you believe is your right. You don't do that with full confidence. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to put it.
You know what? Yeah, you don't. You're like, so places like in Kenya, and that's like the political development side of it. When here you could like carry your placards and go like, can we cuss here on your podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
People in America, they just like, how you guys like to complain about things, and
we do. It's okay.
So when you get here and you go with the system, it kind of builds in you that, I'm a human being. I have rights.
But also
I
to,
should express
but
myself.
also to kind of point out, you stayed here in one of the volatile years in American history where there was
Yeah.
a lot of riots and the Black Lives Matter movement and all that.
So I saw it all.
Yeah, so like being here, I'm pretty sure that kind of get
There were
into
campaigns, remember, during
Yeah,
the
yeah,
campaigns. Everything was like, it was. That's why I learned a lot. That was a very good period to like pick a lot of things, because during those times there's a pandemic, it's an electioneering period, there's campaigns going on.
Right.
Those are the times when emotions rise and you see people for who they really are. You see their pains, you see their joys, you see what really matters to them. And that's when you study a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it was like very interesting to me too, because I've gotten vaccine all my life, and when the WHO, World Health Organization, comes to our street, they literally would just call us. They don't ask for anything. They don't ask my mom if it's okay to give it to me or whatever. They would just come, give me a candy, and put it in my arm. So innately, when that was also interesting for me to see the whole vaccination politics between the people thinking they should take it or not take it. I don't care either way.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting for me to see people express that right.
Me too. me too. Like, and they don't. You know how in America people just don't mince their words. I like reading the placards during like demonstrations or campaigns. People just go full out, and you don't. That's when you go back home.
Yeah.
That was one of those things. During that COVID season.
Right.
The fact that you could have a space and go like, I don't want to wear, and you can tell a cop that here in America, because I don't remember wearing the mask, to be honest. I don't remember. Also, I think it's being in Washington, which is a very democratic space, environment. But so when I went back to Kenya, that was one of those things. I'm like, I'm sure I can tell the cop, like, if I'm in the streets, why? And then that's when your guys go like, Joe, you're not in America.
Yeah.
Remember, you're not in America. Here, by the time you talk to a cop, you go like, excuse me, sir, I have rights.
You're going to be arrested immediately. You want to hear that?
You have what? Say that again. What do you have again?
You're going to be arrested.
You have rights? We're taking you in. Like, come and explain to us those rights when you're in there. So... So some of those things, the liberties just of being a human being and existing here, just being able to express yourself and exercising those liberties, that is one of those things that you note when you go back home. Home is not here. It's headed there. We've come from darker days, but we still don't have that space where activists, or you could just walk down the street and express yourself or exercise your rights in that sense. So we still have a long way to go in that regard.
Thanks so much. That was very well thought out and interesting point of view. So I guess what I'm going to ask you now is, since you've seen where America is at, and you've seen the effect of, let's say, for example, we're not saying for sure, but we're just kind of saying from our point of view of capitalist system, which kind of make people work all the time. People have more money here, have more yard, their house have space. But back in Africa, because of the infrastructure and how things are, people cannot depend on each other. Like you talk to your neighbors, there's not too many fence places, you kind of know each other out. But if you also, like you said, you're noticing that some of those things are actually coming back to Africa now, like Kenya or Nigeria. There's apartment complexes, there's all this infrastructure coming out. How do you think that is going to affect us? Because we're not actually, maybe it's better for Americans to be individuals and independent. And I can say as an African that live in America that I know I'm not made to be just alone all the time. I can do it for a little stretch of time, but after a while I need to just be around people, just because of how we are raised. So how do you think the infrastructure and the system of capitalism that is now, with the internet and the social media is bringing a lot of things influencing Africa. So how do you think that's going to affect us in the long run?
Wow, I worry about that sometimes. In that, however, yeah, I do worry about that, like where we're headed. In that, are we conscious enough to, because we don't have to go through every challenge that the first world has gone, you know, like we are not, we should be able to like study, like we want to, because we have something to compare, right? If we can come to a place like America and see where they are and see what they've done, we should be able to study like this worked great, this did not work great, right? So it's my hope and desire that even as countries of Africa like Kenya, even as we aspire to be modern first world countries or societies, that we do not forget stuff that works. We don't have to change everything. That's I think that's the key. We don't have to change everything. Keep what works and adopt only that. You don't have to change we don't have to change a lot about our culture, you know, the community, how we live in communities. Because if you look at my grandmother, for instance, and that is like all the grandmothers of my friends that I know, you in Africa, you can easily turn 90. You don't have all those conditions of a 90-year-old in a first world. Because much of it has been contributed by that, what you call that community, organic kind of living, you know. And it's not even an African thing. It's not even our culture thing. It's just a human thing. You know how they say man is not an island?
Right.
It's infrastructure and technology and all those things. They don't define the quality of human life. They don't. If all those things were like scrapped off, there are other things that would make the quality of human life great. And that's just being in each other's life, the community aspect of it. You have to have people who care about you, you know, live in that. You have to be like your brother's keeper, laugh out loud, share the sunshines, share just the joys of life. We need one another. We need one another to just be happy. That's why prisons are meant to be prisons. You are isolated from your human community, right? If you're isolated from human community and put in a basement, for instance, alone, you go mad. Why? You're a human being, you're not meant to be isolated. You're meant to be in there, to enjoy, to be one, to be connected. So even as we develop and do all those things, I wish there are some things about our culture that we don't have to change. I wish we're just not hungry for too much modernization that we forget about just that community, just checking up on each other, the oneness, that pure love that comes from like heart to heart. We can literally just be in the streets and I genuinely care about you and I can come through for you. I wish we could have that. I wish we don't have to like isolate too much in the hope of modernization, because everything, like I started by saying, is about balance, right? There's good with development, but if you let it go without without checking, then everything good has something bad in it, and everything bad has something good in it. So it's, for me, my observation is find where you can strike a balance. Pick what is good about modernization and development and infrastructure. At the same time, maintain what works, what has worked. Because it's not like everything has not worked or everything is bad. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. So I guess what I was going to ask you, though, maybe now let's expand what you talked about some of those cultures and traditions, because Africans, we have cultures and traditions. Even though you're raised in Kenya, I'm raised in Nigeria, we still have some cultures and traditions that have been passed down to us. And I think for what you were saying earlier, one of the big ones, which, you know, I think is probably one of the biggest one and that cause issues with older people here, is that we respect our elders. We think they have something to say. We respect their experience and they're loved. And you want to go older in Africa. Whereas here, young and 20, all the people that are influencers on Instagram and YouTube are all like in their 18s and 19s and 20s. So they give those people, you know, the top tier of the society. They are what everybody want to aspire to, except for, you know, that's what I noticed at least, which is backward of our home. You know,
Yeah.
if we're having a gathering, our grandma is the one that's gonna say the prayer, or she's gonna be the one that, you know, everybody, let's have the best seat in the house. If I see someone older coming from the store without, like you said, a human thing, without me even thinking about it, I'm just gonna go and help them. Whereas in American society, I don't even see old people. Like they have a home. They, you see, like, that's this society. It's almost like just kind of get rid of, you know, older people in a way. So I was just trying to say that to say, do you think that's one of the things that need to be addressed for us to not lose our culture?
That's actually very curious. I've actually really never looked at it, but that's honest. I've actually not thought about like old people in America, because
they're here.
I know they are, but you know, like when you think about old people in America, you just think nursing home, and there's that even panic of everyone is afraid to be old.
Yeah, that's it.
Because I visited a friend who part of their dinner joke was telling their grandma, "You have 2 more years before I take you to a nursing home."
Wow.
Yeah, and the grandma did not take offense. In me being Joy, the Kenyan girl Joy, was like,
you're not telling your grandma that.
No. I'm like, what did...
Yeah.
I took offense, and then I realized, oh, okay, I come from a different culture. I have to like catch myself, go like, oh, maybe that's just how they do it. But yeah, and I think, you know, there's some things that you cannot fight. For instance, wisdom, experience and wisdom are correlated. You know, and you cannot fight that. Experience and wisdom are correlated. So, and if you cannot harness that and just like give them space, because I feel like we waste a lot of... Remember our old people, they've been there.
Yeah.
They've seen it, they've done it. There's nothing new under the surface of the earth. If we don't give them a space, sometimes there's like that thin line of letting people learn by their experiences. It's a thin line between what can be passed down and what should you learn by your own experience. There's that thin line there. And again, balance, Zeke. I've learned so much about this word balance.
Right.
And everything in life is about balance. In that, don't rule out. And you can't rule out any group of people. There is so much that we can learn from them. Of course, the respect. We owe them that, because we even owe our lives to them, right?
Right.
So I don't think we should rule them out. Give them a fair space. Let them age gracefully.
Right.
It's so sad. Like, it's so sad that if you age here, it's like you always know there's a condition awaiting you. Yeah. Somehow.
Yeah. Whereas my great grandma, we didn't even know how old she was. That's how old she was. You know, nobody knows.
You just live, right?
You just know, and she still had a farm. But I think in village that she lives, you know, she has a purpose. People need her, and that's what kept her going.
Yeah,
because people would leave kids with her. Because back in Africa, I remember like almost all my friends, you would go to their house in the afternoon, and you would think everybody's gone at the house. You'll be knocking, and then someone old will come out, and they will visit with you, and you make a friend. And now you guys are cool. And then whenever you're passing by, you say hi to them, and they say hi to you, they check in with you. And once in a while, they give you a little gem. They will give you a little something. They see that you're going bad.
The love.
They will give you love. They'll give you advice. So it's like, who else is best for you to tell you to slow down when you're going fast? But American society don't give space for that. You know,
that's such a good observation, you know?
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm always good friends with like old people at my gym. Because I always take time to visit with them.
Yeah.
Because you can just see like nobody talks to them. And they're so
I know,
excited.
and I feel like they're sad, you know. It's like they've been isolated, you know. You're old, you've had your time. We don't need you anymore. That's in Africa. I feel like old people they already know their place in that. My grandma. Did I ever I don't know if I told you, but I was raised by my grandma.
I didn't know that.
I was since I was 3 years old, 3, 4. I went to live with my grandma. And that's kind of the role of the grandmas back home. They know, inherently, they just know that I'm going to take care of my kids. Even if it's not like fully, You know that December is time to go see your grandma.
Yeah.
You know that your mom will take you to your grandma to teach you your language, to teach you your culture.
Yep.
You know that your grandma is the one who gives you the stories, and like cultural passing.
Yeah.
Those values is your grandmother. My mother's mother is still alive, and when I was in the university, I took a literature unit, a few units in literature, and one of those assignments needed us to like evaluate something like in the day kind of thing, and I had to call my grandma because it had to be like an oral test. You couldn't find that stuff on Google.
Okay.
Do you know where I got that from? Because I got an A because I called my grandma.
Right.
And I was like, so I have an assignment here. I cannot get these answers anywhere else. Today, do you know what she remembers? She says, do you remember when you were in the university and how did you pass that unit? And when I tell her grandma I got an A in that unit, she feels like, oh, they remember me, they value me, there's something that they know that I know and I can teach them. Right. And when you give them that role to even just pass down the traditions, the culture, I feel like so many people, young people who go through life feeling like they're not rooted or grounded anywhere, they could use that generation of people to like ground them. They could use that.
Yeah.
Because it's a tree, right?
Right.
Your grandma is there in the roots. She's in the roots.
Right.
And I am the young person, probably a branch or a leaf somewhere.
Right.
So if you're in the branch side of this tree,
right,
you have to realize that your grandma is the roots and she's holding you and how far she's gotten you. She's the minerals. She's the one you feed off her. Everything. Right. So if you don't recognize that, it's like you hang somewhere there. You don't have roots.
You don't have, but that's kind of the cost of being number one, because America is number one, and we're a very successful country. And the problem with us is that, and I've noticed that too, is that we want to be cool, All people are not cool enough for us, which is like at home.
How sad is that?
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I mean, these are the people that build this country, they put their time in, and I just feel like so many people will have unlimited resources. Who else is better to tell you about yourself than your grandparents? But people don't even visit them. People don't think like grandparents are like whiny or whatever, which is like, it's not true.
Yeah, they're not. They're the sweetest humans ever. Oh, my grandma now has WhatsApp. She's in her 90s.
She calls you every day.
So now I cannot even hide. She goes, I saw you online.
Yeah, it's over, man. It's over.
So I cannot update my WhatsApp stories anymore because she said, I was calling you last night and I kept calling and calling. Initially I'll be like, Grandma, I was busy. I saw your pictures and videos. You were at a party. So yeah. So they can learn these things, and they always feel so good to be included.
It's like if you do it too, then when you grow older, you expect it. But the problem is that nobody's actually taking that. It's become some people have kind of justified that, like, oh, certain group of people here are the one that do that, or we don't do that because of whatever. And it's just like, I'm not saying all grandparents are great, but I'm just saying like most people will learn so much. Instead of you to spend that money to go to Africa or Thailand to go find a culture or whatever, spend some money and go spend time with your grandparents. You will hear all of it.
I know the wisdom these people have to. I don't know, but for me individually, as I really I love hanging out with old people. It's not once that on my birthdays in Kenya I just go to like old people homes. Right. They don't even have to be sick, maybe just old, right. And they're in a home, maybe a church home, something. And if I am hanging out in a group like that, I always have a notebook and a pen. They just have a very different perspective of life. And if you want to know what really matters in life, just ask an old person. Like if you are, I remember once I did like just random interview with our grandmother back home, and like that's when I turned 30, and I was like, so when you were 30, if you were taken back to 30 right now, Grandma, what would you do different? And she'd be like, I wish I got more kids. Like everyone will tell you what it is that they could have done, should have done, or what they enjoy the most. And what they constantly have told me is you know what? When you are 90 one day, you're not going to miss your office. You're not going to miss your workmates. You won't even remember that certificate or medal that you were given when you worked so hard at the office. You remember some of those moments that you spent with your kids. You remember those moments you spent with your family, that you traveled to a place that you did not know. And they show you what really matters in life. Because sometimes when you're young and ambitious, and sometimes ambition without limits is dangerous, you have some people, such people, the grandmother, grandpas, they give you a different perspective and they show you what really matters in life. Because whatever you're doing, they've done it. They've been there.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It's like being given a leakage. Hanging out with the old people is like being given a leakage of life.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, I'm gonna segue real quick. So I know you've already mentioned that you're from Kikuyu, and I think Richard kind of gave me a little background on one of the podcasts. I know whenever this one comes out, but it's probably gonna come out before ours. You talked about Kikuyu culture. You guys are very determined, business oriented, never give up. And
Yeah.
you also say you guys are the best tribe in Kenya. Do you agree with that?
The best? No,
Yeah,
I wouldn't say
number
there's number one in
Yeah.
what? That's here. I don't think I really love diversity. If there's actually something that me traveling has shown me is just the beauty of diversity, meeting different tribes, different ethnics, I love that. And there's nothing wrong with celebrating your culture or your tribe. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying, I love being Yoruba because we dress good. Celebrate it. But I think where the balance is when you start to think that your tribe is better than the other.
You don't think you're number one?
No, I don't look at life like that anymore. I don't. It's not. If you were to ask me, we are better in business. In what it depends on better in what. We are better in business stuff. Kenya has 44 to 48 tribes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And each it's like a jigsaw fit. Everyone is better at something than the other. We're more aggressive. Sometimes the Kikuyu's aggressiveness leads the country into violence. Sometimes you see, so you in best, you know what I mean?
It's a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword.
Okay. So for someone like me that I've never been to like your hometown, so what is the name of your hometown where you grew up at? Are you from Nairobi?
Currently, yes.
Yeah, but like were you born in Nairobi though?
Well, here's the short of the long. I was born in Nairobi, but growing up, my mom and my dad, I feel like this is a very common story shared by a lot of African kids born in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
We kind of have a thread of a storyline where that was a very defining moment for Africa, not just like Africa as a whole. In the 80s and 90s, probably that's when the first generation, after liberation from colonization, there were like unique challenges. Those are the times when Africa was hit by pandemics like HIV and AIDS, which rendered so many families broken. That was like a very defining moment for Africa, politically, economically, socially. Families were broken, countries went to war, affecting, so in all that circus, I remember my grandmother is the one who took care of me like from 3 years old. And that's because my mom and my dad split. When we're a big family. We are 7 children. I'm the 6th.
You're the 6th?
I'm the 6th born. Wow. That middle child who nobody really cares too much about, but you have to like, hey guys, I'm here.
Around 6, people kind of forget about you.
Yeah, especially, you see, I'm not the second. I'm like near the last born, but you're not the last born.
You're the last born, yeah.
You're hanging in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, this one. And I never even got to enjoy the last born position because between me and our last born sister, it's just 1 year, 1 calendar year. So I probably not even like breastfeed enough before my sister was born or conceived rather.
Right.
I think so. But yeah, so I was born in Nairobi, but I do not have any Nairobi childhood memories because I relocated to a city. It's not yet a city in the standards of, I don't know how,
kind of?
like Kenya, we have cities and towns.
Okay.
So Eldoret is still a town.
What's the name of it?
Eldoret.
Eldoret.
Yeah.
So what is it like?
Eldoret is mainly a farm town. Oh, it's actually the town where it's the home of champions. Like if you enter Eldoret, they say, welcome to the home of champions. Every global star athlete that you know is from Eldoret.
Really?
Yeah, all the runners come.
Do they train from there? Is it like on a hillside? Is it a flat land?
It's a valley.
Mountain?
Yeah.
Valley.
It's like the northern. No, it's like the Rift Valley. It's a Rift Valley, so it's in between the mountains.
Yeah. Does it rain a lot there, or does it have a normal?
It rains a lot. It has extremes. When it's hot, it's really hot. When it's cold, it's really cold. But if between raining and sun, it rains more.
So
it's a very cold town. Eldoret, yeah.
Eldoret.
Okay, you can call it LD. Everyone knows it's LD.
LD to Nairobi. Is it like a construct of like Spokane to Seattle, or is it like construct of like, let's say like a smaller town like Pullman to Seattle?
No, it will be Spokane.
Oh, okay.
Pullman is a bit smaller. Yeah, okay. It will be because it has everything. It's only that it's more of a farm town. People in Eldoret don't live in the city more. They live in the farms, and they have huge farms. Because even so, for Kenya, for instance, staple food in Kenya is maize, corn, if you want to call it corn here.
I think it's maize. I agree too.
Right?
I know what they call it corn.
I know it's maize. I know corn and corn is different, right?
Yeah,
it's maize.
corn is different. Yeah,
it's maize. So Eldoret is one of the biggest contributors of maize farming in Kenya.
Right.
So you can imagine, and wheat is also a big deal. And so Eldoret has a lot of maize farming, and that's like large scale farming. So I also grew up in a farm. It wasn't like super big, but it was big. And being a Kikuyu, Eldoret is pretty much not where I'm from, because I don't even come from the runners tribe or ethnic group. Right. I don't. So I was like an outlier in a different city. You know, like
you're not running.
I'm just an outlier. I'm there. I'm not running. Yeah, but it's because I did not mention this, but in my family, in my paternal side, my dad's dad has some Maasai in him. Ooh. That's how he ended up, because Eldoret is actually a Maasai name, just means I think a flat land or something. That's a lot of Kenyan towns have names been named by Maasai. It's one of the indigenous communities of Kenya. And most towns or cities, even Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya, Nairobi, that's a Maasai. It means like a place with many like ponds of water or something. Yeah.
And for someone that doesn't know, I'm still learning about a little bit about Maasai. They're one of the oldest, like still intertribal culture.
Yeah,
in the world, right?
They're still an indigenous community. They're still one of those that have resisted civilization since they just do their own thing, their own way.
I can't wait to talk to someone that's actually from me, because I have so many questions. There's just so many like hearsay that I've heard, and I've not confirmed from someone that's from it to actually know if it's true. Like I've heard some stuff like you have to kind of fight like maybe like a wild animal for it to be a man.
Yeah, they have crazy and very interesting passage of rights. Like, like in Africa, probably you do that in Nigeria, where boys are not circumcised until a certain age because it's a passage of right from boyhood to manhood. Right. Like in the Kikuyu community, they have to be at least 13 or 14. Okay. Like right when you're going from your primary to high school, to secondary education, that transition. So that's when the boys get circumcised. Like to just be told, now you've become a man and you're going to secondary school. So man up, So the Maasais have that too. But for them, they don't do it like in any modern way. They have to, their passage of rights are crazy. You have to be too.
Lion?
Yeah, you hunt, you kill something, because Maasais are nomads. They're still nomads to date, so they move around a lot with their animals. They have.
Oh, okay. They just graze with their animals.
Yeah. So even the tests that you have to undergo are tests that confirm that when you're out there in the wild, you can protect yourself.
Oh, interesting.
That's why.
So
you're not killing a lion for the sake.
No,
it's because because they move with thousands of cattle at a go, depending on the season. Oh. And if you're out there in the wild and you have cattle, and that's their main business. The cattle keeping is like their economic
Infrastructure.
source of life, of livelihood. So they have to protect themselves, the animals, go through the harshest conditions and all that. At night, stay watch, So they are trained to kill lions, and they can even tell, they can sniff them from far. So if you come to Kenya and you're going for a safari,
I heard
you are in the safest hands if you have like a Maasai warrior, because those guys have learned to even tell when a snake is approaching. Like they are in sync. They're in sync with
That's so amazing.
They're very in sync.
I've heard so many, like I said, stories, but I can't wait. I want to really do that. I want to really
come to Kenya.
Yeah,
Make sure I'm there.
I have to. Well, so before the podcast, you were kind of explaining to me a bit, which is kind of like another like eye-opening conversation, because Richard also kind of mentioning him a lot, but because the podcast is still fresh in my head. He was explaining to me the difference between Swahili and how Swahili was made and all that. But I forgot what you said, but you were kind of explaining to me something about how Swahili letters
came up, or
you were talking about how pronunciations.
Oh, Swahili, and I've taught a lot of even my white friends how to just like read Swahili.
Oh, okay.
Because Swahili is a very beautiful language. It's very melodious, even speaking it. I think like even my accent, if you ever wonder like Kenyan accent, most of our accent is a mixture of Swahili and all these other 48 tribes. Like I'm Kikuyu, grew up in a very Kalenjin environment. LD is a very Kalenjin environment. So I have a mixture of all those accents. So Swahili is a Bantu language. It was originally made up of a mixture of languages, and one of them is Arabic, because it's a language that developed from the coastal Kenya, which is predominantly, it was, I don't want to say attacked, it was invaded by the Arabs during the colonization period. That was like their territory. So Swahili came from a lot of Bantu languages. Bantu is like, Bantu language is like one of the most dominant language block in Africa, not just in Kenya. So like Kikuyu is a Bantu language.
Okay.
Probably Igbo in Nigeria is a Bantu language, to my understanding. Yeah, and Igbo's a Congolese language. That's a Bantu language. If you go to Rwanda, they have Hutu and Tutsi. I think Tutsi is a Bantu language. So Bantu speaking group in Africa. So Africa either has Bantu language or there are others. Bantu is the biggest speaking language of Africa. So Swahili is one of the Bantu, was formed by combining a mixture of so many Bantu languages and Arabic. I don't speak any Arabic, but so Swahili is really easy. If you want to, the way it's written is exactly how you read it. And most of Swahili words are like, you read it in a consonant and a vowel, consonant and vowel. That's mostly how Swahili words are arranged. For instance, this is a phone, right? A phone in Swahili would be simu. How you write simu is SIMU. And that's a 2-syllable word, simu. And as you just read it as you write it. And you don't have, so it will be very easy to read. Most people are able to read Swahili way faster than you don't even have to know what it means, but some people can read it so well you think they're Swahili speakers. Yeah, but it's a pretty easy. You just pick a consonant and a vowel at a time. You don't have very long words in Swahili, like what, I don't know. I actually did some linguistics, so I was about to tell you a diphthong, but that's very technical. It's just like, for instance, in English has a lot of words where some letters are silent. So many languages. In Swahili, hardly do you have that. And if you ever encountered a silent letter or vowel in a Swahili word, then that's a hint that that's an Arabic word. It's not a Bantu word.
That's kind of interesting, because Yoruba is, I believe, is also like that as well. Most of the words is how you write it, is how you pronounce it, which is one of my big problems. I just learned this maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I learned that one of my big problems in pronunciation in American is because of so many silent words, because I just pronounce everything,
Yeah, and also American words, one long word is one syllable. If you ever want to know how to pronounce a language, I think or how to read a language, you have to know how the syllables are divided. For instance, from a Swahili speaker, hardly will you ever find a word like simu and it's not a 2-syllable word. You have to simu. You see those?
I see what you're saying.
But in English, you find like one word is what. So, for instance, manager,
Right.
you cannot say manager like that.
Yeah,
you
you
can
can't
read
break
it
it
like
down.
that. You cannot break it. In Swahili, you have to, if you find a consonant and a vowel, you break them as one syllable most of the time. Does not always apply, but as a beginner, that's where you start. Also, you will never, this is actually a never, unless like in one or two instances. In Swahili, you cannot find like two consonants following each other. Like a K and a G. It has to be a consonant
Right.
and a vowel. A consonant and a vowel. And the vowel is where you divide how to read the consonant. So you find S-I-M. You are so sure you're not going to go like sim. You have to first divide S and the I. Where the consonant and the vowel appear, you divide it there. So you can be able to count how many syllables are there.
Right. I in it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
See,
interesting.
it's a very have you heard Swahili music? It's just
I've
melody.
known. That's good. Actually, that's a good segue. So I know Afrobeat is kind of getting big now. So
Oh yeah.
I want to know what are the music. I think I was told about Santi Soul.
Sauti Sol.
Sauti Sol.
How can you have to know how to say that.
Oh yeah, Santi Soul.
They
Yeah.
are our biggest music exports. So
Really? Yeah, I
Yes,
heard.
they
I heard.
are.
I actually listened to them. They're not bad. Actually, they're dope. I like it. I like the vibe.
Zeke, do you know there's something that I don't believe in doing or saying? If something is good,
Yeah.
do not describe something good from a negation point. You know what I mean by that? Like if something is good, don't say it's not bad. Just say it's good.
It's good. All right. Do you want to
Yes.
listen to with my boy Pato Rankin? I think that's the song that with Pato
Oh,
Rankin.
Pato Ranking. If you go through my Instagram, you'll see a photo of me and Pato Ranking.
Really?
Oh, I
Respect,
love Pato Ranking.
respect.
I love Pato Ranking.
So, is that what type of music do you think people need to know about that's from Kenya?
Oh, from Kenya.
Maybe not the brand, maybe just like genre of music.
So Kenya is has a very unique position even in the region. Of course, Afrobeat is the language of music in Africa, not just in Kenya. Right now, Afrobeat is
Taking over.
for breakfast, for dinner, for lunch. That's Afrobeat. And of course, you guys Nigerians,
We're blowing it up right now.
I love your ambition, man. I love your ambition.
Just
Like
have a lot
as
of
soon as
people.
something comes in, you run with it. That's the
People.
Nigerian spirit.
Yep.
It comes with the population.
Yeah.
If you come from a country with 200 million people, you have no time to be slacking.
You have to be
you have
good.
to be really good. So I get that. This is what I believe. This is totally personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who's made it big on the music stage, global, regional, whatever, in your national music stage, everyone who's made it big, your music must have some origin or some original touch.
Something deeper.
Yeah, it must. For instance, Burna Boy's album that won him a Grammy.
Mhm.
He has a Grammy, right?
Yeah.
Twice
a Star.
It wasn't the African Giant. I all of us wanted him to get.
Oh, you're talking
was-
about the first one, Twice a Star.
Yeah, that's what got him the Grammy.
Yeah.
But for him to do Twice as tall, before he did that, there was the African Giant.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the African Giant and Twice as Tall, that's kind of when he figured out. Like, if you listen to those albums, you hear the influences of the Fela Kutis,
Yeah. I mean, they were also in African Giant, but I actually personally think Twice a Star actually have more African. He has this.
That's what
He
I'm
has
saying.
so many African artists in there. He has so many African sample, like in the song.
Even
Monster.
has Sauti Soul, actually.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite songs on the album. Probably my favorite is called "The Monster You Made." At the end of it, he played a sample of this Ghanaian writer. He was talking about the invasion of the British and how long they've been taken from us and all that. Like it is so many little things to make the whole.
That's what I'm saying. You get what I mean. So as long as your music is rooted somewhere,
Right.
addressing something that your collective can share, it always goes. You cannot be like an African artist and you want to compete in a hip hop stage, and hip hop is a very like American thing. Yes, you can do it, but people who usually excel are the ones who their music is addressing, like, because music has to come from the soul.
Right.
And your soul has to share something that you genuinely either believe in or you've lived and all that. So music that is mostly borrowed, like from your past, the other musicians of the past in your generation, if you kind of tend to borrow and make a thread and like modernize it, but it still has a stretch borrowed from the original, that's the kind of music that is timeless. Yeah, that it endures the test of time.
Yeah, I mean, that is true in all type of music. Even hip hop and my favorite albums, they always have samples from other culture.
Yeah.
So long story short, so you're saying rumba and what other? You said that's other music genre that you mentioned.
We even have like R&B. Swahili music is very R&B.
What is the good Swahili music, that R&B artist that I can listen to, that you listen to?
Swahili R&B, that is Kenyan. Otile Brown.
Otile, how do you spell that?
Otile. Otile, that's his name. That's his name. Otile Brown. Brown, the normal Brown.
Okay, I have to check that
You
out.
have to listen to Otile Brown if you're listening to Swahili music. You have to listen to Nadia Mukami. I'm trying to think about Kenya. All Mombasa music artists. So Mombasa is the coastal city of Kenya and the second biggest city in Kenya after Nairobi. And they tend to do very different music. Most of their music has Tanzanian influence since they share that border. And Kenyans from Mombasa, or the coastal city, speak very fluent Swahili, which is like Tanzanian. So they share a lot. So if you pick any Mombasa song, Susumila, it's one of my favorite from Mombasa.
Susumila.
Have you heard?
I think I
probably
heard
haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Sauti Sol have very good R&B music.
Their music is good.
Yeah, they have pop, they have Afrobeat, they're very diverse and versatile. Yeah.
What is the misconception about Kenyans?
Misconception that we drink a lot. That's the number one. Yeah. I actually saw that the other, but is that really a misconception? I'm starting to doubt whether but people think that. And another misconception, I keep going to the website and go like, Kenya is not safe. Kenya is like pretty much, it's really a safe place. And I keep seeing that like on advisory websites. Be kidnapped. I've lived there. Like, it's not an everyday story. Like every other city or every other country that you go to in this day and age, you have to sort of exercise the same caution.
Right.
And that's the same if you come to like a city like Nairobi. You just use the same common sense that you would use to survive in a city like New York.
Right.
It's a big city. It's competitive. It has different interests, different people, But
overall, you feel safe.
Overall, it's a very safe, it's a very friendly. Kenyans are the most friendly people in the continent. Oh, by the way, do you know all US ambassadors so far, after they finish, like American ambassadors to Kenya, we now have 3 after they served their term. They don't want to go back to America.
Really?
They don't. They haven't. They've just like married a Kenyan woman and continued to live. Kenya is addictive. And it's just because people they're very friendly, especially to foreigners. If you're a foreigner and you come to Kenya, I feel like that's the safest place. We really love to take care of foreigners. Right. Like you can just stop anyone in the streets in Kenya.
I think mostly African countries.
Yeah, we're just like really friendly people. Well, we love visitors. Your culture has told you to.
My mom told me that, and I used to ask her because when I was a kid, I remember one time this person, which something I would never do here, was that they come to our house. Literally, was walking by. Said like their car run out of gas, which is something common to in Africa.
Yeah.
And it was late, and it's kind of doesn't have a place to stay. And my mom, give them our room, give them a place to shower, cook the last food in the house for him, take care of them. I remember the following day, I was like, Ma, like, what if that person is not like what he said he was? And she said, you understand someday. She said, what you give out is what you give. She said, you just do it. I'm doing it for me. And it's kind of funny how like, me and my brothers, we don't live at home anymore. We're in different countries. And as we someone talk about it, about how much some of the stuff our mom have pull out there, just the good omens. I feel like sometimes we're getting it back. So
True. And that's the same thing, especially growing up with my grandma in the rural places, because I didn't grow up in the city, right?
Right.
And now, especially when I'm an adult, I remember the things that she taught me. This is because now we have social media. I
Right.
see people share the same story, like from Nigeria, from Guinea, even
Right.
it's like an African thing from South Africa, where you go like, we even had to have specific utensils for visitors.
Oh yeah, special ones. Special spoons.
So culturally, you are taught to like regard visitors highly.
Oh yeah.
And my grandma, one of those things you'd fight with her is, if even the next compound neighbor came in and it's early morning, the first thing after greeting them is you must offer them a cup of tea, whether they want it or not. I still go through that when I go back home and I visit my grandma.
Right.
And all her friends, they probably, if you go to the next door, they'll be like, you must have tea. You're probably full at that time, but you must taste. It's just like the culture regards visitors highly.
Well, I think what they believe, this is what I thought it is. I think Africans or people that are in developed countries have this mindset that some way, somehow they can be in your situation.
Yeah.
So they are humble. They are forced to be humble to be nice in a way in the beginning. It now become a routine and become a cultural thing. Whereas someone here, it's like, I have everything. I have 911.
The individualist,
It's just like, I don't need you. It's like, I don't need you. I don't need to be nice to you. You know what I'm saying? So then it leads to like not trusting people. It actually leads out because people don't, you project that energy out.
Yeah.
Because that's why my mom says she can never live here.
That's what I feel the same way. I feel like, and it's very difficult to like put words into it, but generally, like, you know how the environment you live in affects your quality of life. That's just a given. And if you get used to living in an environment, like, sometimes you don't even know how to like just stop someone by the shop or at a mall to just ask them for directions. Sometimes like, am I bugging them? If that was Kenya, you don't even need to say hi, and people don't take offense. You go like, oh, hi, is this the way to the exit B? They'll be like, yeah, sure. They will even stop what they're doing to show you that. Here, you're like, should I not? Which is what I was talking to you about, the quality of human life, where there's that genuine heart-to-heart smile where you just share with another human being without feeling scared. I don't think there's any development necessary to make me be afraid of a fellow human being.
Yeah. Well, because you said it right. The energy is in the air. Like, you don't
there's that
people.
energy, and and this is just energy. You know, you cannot really explain energy. It's either there or not. And when you're here, you kind of walk with the energy of, yes, you feel free. And that's usually the thing that confuses me the most, because this is a place of freedom and confidence and self-expression. But at the same time, there's a lot of individualism where you are alone. You are in the group, but you're alone.
You're alone most of the time.
Most of the time, you're just alone, locked in somewhere, just doing what the status quo has said that you should do.
Right.
And the energy kind of becomes tensed. People are anxious.
People don't know who to talk to. And you're like, am I bugging you? Well, people, it's funny, like my mom pointed out when she was here that before my friends come, we have to text so much. Whereas at home,
you just walk in.
People just walked in.
I know,
so
you just walk in.
Even if you're having a bad day, someone will come to you, will ask you for food, will ask for something, or they will tell you about what they're going through, and takes you out of whatever.
Yeah, and the beauty of that, the more you interact with people and just talk. For instance, if this was home, probably your age mates would be here, and you just hear a knock on the door. Hey, Zeke, I just popped in to see if you're there.
Yeah.
And they'll just walk in, they sit there, they'll tell you how tough school is, or a certain teacher. Like, you'll just bullshit about a lot of things.
Right.
By the end of the day, that's healing. That's already healing. The fact you don't even have to find a solution while you're talking. But the fact that you can be together with people who are going through the same stuff as you, there's that confidence of, oh, I'm not alone.
I have a counter to that, though. I mean, I would say as someone that is extremely social, and also it's hard for me to concentrate sometimes, which I've taken my time to kind of understand that. I also, we can, like you say, balance.
Yeah.
I also can see that could be limiting because you don't have time to kind of concentrate. Not everybody can operate and still be productive in that kind of system because you're always interrupted all the time whenever you need your time to kind of focus. So how do you bridge that?
I get that. And I'm not saying that when you live in a community where you kind of have, they call it like mechanical solidarity, like when you hang out a lot together, you're always doing the same thing, sort of, you have that kind of mechanical solidarity. You're not very secondary, like the social ties are not too secondary, like in the first world. Like here, I find like even friends are not like in the inner circle. They're like in the periphery, somewhere out there. You're cautious about getting into someone's circle. There's a good side to that.
Right.
But we don't mean that in a mechanical solidarity, we don't mean that you don't respect boundaries. You see, like it doesn't mean that.
How do you think Africans can learn to respect boundaries? Do you think it's an individual? Or do you think
that's very individual, because I don't think anyone stops you from saying, this is my study time.
But people like get annoyed with you, and people think it's rude if they come to your house.
I think that's communication. Depends on how you communicate.
Okay.
You see, like if they are your friends and they are already showing up by your door, I know what you mean. But you have a right to say, guys, if you could give me 2 hours, I can't. I do that all the time because I'm a very social being. I'm sure you can you know that. Yep. So it does not mean that if you're in a community, does not replace the need for some individual growth. You still have that. So picture it this way. As you develop or as you grow, you have an inner circle. You could like draw imaginary circles. You start with a small inner circle in there. That's your intimate space, right? In your intimate space, that's you. That's how not a lot of people get into that circle.
Okay.
It's just you and your secrets, and that's your intimate space. Right. After that, you have another layer of another circle. Right outside your intimate space, there's your personal space.
Right.
Personal space is probably where you will share with your lover, your people you consider very close to you.
Right.
That's your personal circle, your personal space. After your personal space, you're going to go to your social space. And there's like that other outer layer where people you study with, people you school with, there's a way you can have all these communities, all these social ties without making one interfere into the other. But you don't have to be alone. For me, that's what I find. You don't have to be alone.
No. That's kind of interesting you're saying that, because all we've heard is, there's so much of this like on TikTok and shorts and Instagram reels about you need to be alone and go away for 6 months. I get what they're saying, but the problem with it is that they don't clarify. What they're saying is that if you're in a toxic place or with people that don't want you to progress, you probably need to be alone. And because some people too are very kind of like they like to be around people too much, and they don't know how to be an individual, which can be a problem. Yeah. But if you're putting out there like be alone, you're gonna hit a bad day, and you're not gonna have anybody to talk to.
You can just be alone all through.
Right.
Balance, Zeke.
Balance
is a heavy word. Yeah.
So, a funny question. This is just a funny one to me, but I have to ask you.
Funny.
So, do you think if we have four work days a week instead of 5, and 3 off days, would that be enough for you to stay in America? For you, at least?
Yeah, I think so.
that's you need to find an online job.
But it can be just me, like
for everybody. You think like at society?
Yeah, at a society level, people just need to chill, like stop, calm down from this go thing. Here's something that I was actually reading before I came here, and I still don't have all the concept, but you're aware about, you're a trainer. Let me start at your doorstep. Okay. You're a trainer, right? Because that's just how exactly life works. If you're training to if you're working out, assuming these muscles, and you work it like Monday to Monday,
right?
What's going to happen?
You're not going to grow.
Even the muscle itself.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that even though you go to the gym to get the muscle, in reality, it's when you're sleeping and resting that you gain the muscle.
Yeah, I have to force myself to sleep because I know the importance of it. If I don't, I mean, you know it. Your performance, suffer from it. You have less energy.
Yeah, even just like if how the muscle develops, it does not develop in the gym. Like that's biology or whatever. It's when you're resting that your muscle grows in your resting energy. It's the same way in the brain. This is scientific. A lot of studies have been done, and it shows, like different states of mind. About the beta, the theta, those different states of mind. And it's been proven that it's when you're resting in your rest mode, when you're in your most restful mode, state of mind or state of being, that's when when you go and take on another action, that's when you're most functional. That's when you're most I don't even have the word, but that's what, let's just use functional for now. That's when you're most efficient. When even if you're reading something or studying for something, that's why if you find societies or communities that value stuff like meditation, you have time to do things like meditation, they lead very better quality of lives than people who are always like on the rush, on the go, doing this, do. You have, as a human being, everything is designed to function in different ways. And the way a human being is designed is rest is important. You have to rest for you to be healthy. Because why would you labor Monday to Monday, and then by the time you hit 50, you so worn out, you own the riches of Peru or whatever it is that you are chasing. And from 50, we are talking about mental disorders, the dementia, because your mind you need to rest. You need to access different states of mind for you to perform. Your performance, if you need to perform, you need to learn how to rest, to be mindful. And I'm sure I've had a conversation with you about like mindfulness. We talk about that a lot. And it's something that we've learned, that we live in a capitalistic society where it's all about do. And there's another side of do. It's be.
Right.
And until you strike a balance in the make a, like how Jay Shetty says it, instead of every time waking up and doing a to-do list, do a to-do list against a to-be list. It's not always the doing. You have to be. And sometimes it's when you get used to being, to resting, the doing becomes easier. You don't even have to do. You don't have to use, because your brain is not as tired. You're not always burnt out, always stressed out, always. As a human being, you have to reset. So how many days again did you say I need in a week? I'm serious. Go and study. Go and check societies that do a lot of mindfulness meditations and more rest and more. They actually perform way better. Athletes use that. Sports people use that, where you just have to like
rest.
You can't always just be in the field, in the track, working out, and
the monitors everything.
Yeah, you have to rest. Why? Because that's the way it is. And I just feel like sometimes in the fast world, it's just the bill. I see my brother do that. I see my family do that.
I think it's the fear. I mean, well, also,
there's the fear. Yeah,
I'm gonna say as someone that lived here too, and I'm not even trying to even side it.
You guys are always like in a hurry. Sometimes I see you guys forget it's your off day. I have my cousins to do that.
Yeah,
it's your off day, and you have like a freaking 3 days off. But you guys are just used to even sitting in a rush, getting up in a rush. You grab everything in a rush. You don't even know how to rest. I feel like people don't even know how to rest.
You become your environment, and I think
you become your environment.
Also, you gotta also understand, like, you've painted that picture very, very, very clear. We're coming from a place where we've never been given. We are like a Ferrari that would have been driven before, and now we're on a racetrack. And the road is open, and we just see opportunities because most of us are first generation here, and we see these things and we live here. We see them. We're not blind, and we want to give them to our kids and to our family members, and there's still so much levels to where we can rest. But I get what you're saying. I have to kind of tell myself that sometimes to just kind of like understand like the movement sometimes. Because you move, it doesn't mean you're productive. And actually, it's a fear. It's actually a big fear of us, like, oh, what if I don't become something at this time? Whereas we should have been taken, as you said, as a whole. Like, homie, you already made it here. You already, that's one of the things where I sometimes...
And it will never be enough. Do you know that?
Yeah, well, so the one thing I do sometimes to kind of take me out of that mind is I will call my mom. And then when I talk to my mom, and then I will see how simple her life is. She's the happiest person I know. And she'll just tell me about like stuff that doesn't make no sense. Like she wakes up early today. She's waiting for some kids to pass through school. She'll give them candy. They get excited to see her every morning. They say to her, she go get like our eggs from the farm. And this her whole day she's telling me about. But it's the way she chooses to live her life. Yeah, so then it takes me back to like, I could be living this too if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Again, we want so much here, and it's just the fact that we've not been given the opportunity. But we kind of also kind of like calmly tell ourselves, which I think comes when you meditate and are mindful, or you can get it through working out, running, whatever. If you do anything physical early in the morning too, you will see you're calm. That one thing I get from working every day is I'm calm. Once I work out,
and something that makes you get in touch with yourself. Because sometimes, if everything that you're looking for, you think it's out here, Zeke, there's never a ceiling. Every time you think you've hit the ceiling, the capitalist drivers move it. You work so hard to get a Ferrari, whatever. What is the latest model of a Ferrari?
I don't know. I want it.
Let's assume it. You don't know, but you want it. Fine, let's use what we have. This is an iPhone, right? You have an iPhone 12.
Yeah.
And you really wanted it.
Right.
There's no ceiling.
They're coming.
Even as we speak, they're producing another one. So where do you in short, getting there is an illusion. I'm not saying stay at the comfort, but do not be caught up in the illusion of who ate my cheese. Do not be caught up in you were always searching, because if mentally you're always searching for something and you don't even know when it's enough, you will never even know what you want. You just know I have. And that's what I find, like a lot of you guys, especially the diasporas here, you come here and you see opportunity. You don't have a ceiling of what is enough. You just know, go get it. It's a good thing. However, remember there's no ceiling. It's an illusion. When you think you've arrived, they move it. They keep moving it. They keep moving it. So it's about what do you want? Because what you want, there's enough for everyone. You just have to know and decide how much is enough for me. And go get that. Like you have to know what is enough for you, because you'll never acquire everything. You'll never have everything. So don't rest, of course, because you cannot waste your potential. You have potential and there's something that drives you every day. But how much is enough? What do you want?
So last question, Joy.
Yeah.
If I am, my parents are Kenyan, I'm assuming, I'm talking about someone. Let's say I'm a grown up here. I live in America. My parents are from Kenya, and I'm thinking about going back to Kenya. I've not been to Kenya. I've only seen pictures.
Are you a Kenyan? In this analogy?
This person, yes, analogy is a Kenyan person.
Born here, probably.
Born here, never been to Kenya. But I've heard stories. I'm assuming they have the culture here a little bit. They're planning on going home. What will you tell that person?
Wow, planning on going home. First of all, good decision.
Yeah.
Okay. To be honest, this will be a very very opinionated thing, but also just don't pick a bag and go home, because there's something that you've been used to, especially in my observation.
Right.
Most African heritage people born here or mostly cultured here, when they go home, sometimes you don't have a footing. Because that's like moving backwards in time somehow. You're used to speed. You're used to things moving a certain speed and way, and then you go back. And if they become people who have adopted to this go thing, you probably feel like you're being slowed down. Eventually, one, give it time.
To plan like a longer stay.
Yeah,
like at least a
give
longer
it
vacation,
time.
right?
I wouldn't say like uproot yourself here directly and go back home. I would say like do a few visits.
Yeah, we're saying visiting. I'm not saying moving. They're thinking
Oh,
of
visiting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a different. Just come.
Just come.
Just pack a bag and go.
Yeah, I guess
the same way as me, packed a bag,
just come.
just go.
Should I go to
it's an adventure.
safari first, or should I get a place like a Airbnb in Nairobi, and then trying to get along with the locals? If I don't have any family, that
If you don't have, I would recommend probably sign up with an agency, like a travel
agency.
Or a tour. Yeah, travel.
Like a tour, so that someone can.
At least. If you totally don't know anyone and you want to visit Kenya, I would advise you that, so that at least you'll have someone to pick you from the airport. Because sometimes if you move from here and go back home and they can tell that you've moved from here, you'll be taken advantage of, right?
They will.
But if you go through a formal channel where everything is standardized and there's transparency, they have a reputation, it's like a business. So in between your trip or whatever it is, from there on, maybe now you can plan to like now go solo. But I would advise if you're first time, never been to, come in through like an agency if you want to travel. Don't just like immerse yourself. You'll be overcharged. You'll be
too much.
Yeah, it'll be too much.